everybody, to the Triad of the Forest podcast, a podcast from Puerto Rican friends coming together to do deep dives into Star Wars and other nerd-related media. This is season 5, episode 15, and since it's Halloween, we decided to do a little special Triad spooky edition where we just have fun talking about some of our favorite scary movies. Now, bear in mind, we are by no means horror experts, so please feel free to use the comment section to correct us in our wrongness.
or not just correct us, if you just want to give recommendations of other films that we should watch. We're always on the lookout to expand our film palette, so to speak. So so it's one of those things that I think it's funny because every year I've always, during October, I'm just like, okay, I'm going to watch like one scary movie per day until Halloween. Yeah. And then a week goes by, and I'm like, crap! I didn't do it. I didn't do it. So now I'm just gonna do 15. Just cut it in half, and I just keep doing that until like when Halloween comes up. I'm just like, well, at least I watch maybe 2 scary movies. But that's how life is. Hopefully, one day I'll be able to commit, and do the 30 or 31 scary movies. But yeah. What's your relationship with Halloween and scary movies? I feel like everyone has a completely different connection to it.
Well, I've always loved Halloween. Where I grew up, it was all townhouses, and it was a bunch of kids. We were all, about the same age, went to the same school. So it was a huge event every year to see everybody one up on the costumes, and the parents were always really good about always having candy, not raisins, none of those health kicks. And it was always really fun. So I was always a huge fan. And then obviously as you grow up, then it turns into like the, dressing up kind of the girls, the slutty, and then it's kind of like the party version of it. And then it goes into just wanting it to be scary again. I mean, I've always really wanted to go to horror nights, and I've never had the chance. But El Husbando is a coward, and he hates scary movies, and he hates all things scary. So it's kind of a buzzkill, but such is life.
Now, here's a question, because I was just talking about this with my partner, a couple of friends. We were talking about when, as kids, we went out trick-or-treating, and they were adamant, and keep in mind this is people that grew up in the States, so maybe it's a cultural thing, or maybe I'm just misremembering my experience trick-or-treating, so I'm going to ask you to see and set the record straight. Back home in Puerto Rico, when did we go trick-or-treating? Did we go trick-or-treating the Saturday before Halloween, or did we go trick-or-treating on the day of Halloween?
We went trick-or-treating on the 31st.
Yeah. Thank you. Right. That's what I thought. Yeah. It's insane.
Trick or treat Halloween.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So I'm not okay. Thank you for the validation, because I felt that was crazy. And I was like, wait, am I just fabricating a memory of a trick-or-treating on the day of Halloween, and we actually did it on the weekend?
And I'm pretty sure my nieces still do it. They do it on the 31st.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Well, and to be fair to my friends and colleagues here in Chicago, I would imagine that it's much easier to do it on the weekend because it starts to get cold here in October. And it's just, it's easier to do it during the day when it's a little warmer out and all that stuff. Yeah. So we didn't have to worry about those things back home. Yeah. It's a beautiful summer weather all year long, so we can definitely go out in our costumes, which is something that I also find very interesting about trick-or-treating kids here. At least in Chicago and all the cold weather states. It's just like seeing them with their costumes, but then bundled up with their big coats. It's like then I just feel back. It's like, man, like you have like all this hope of like your little Halloween costume, and then you just have to cover it up.
You can't even show it off. You don't even get to show it off. That's sad. Yeah, we did always do the 31st at night. But I guess also now that not all neighborhoods have kids and stuff, I know that they do events at like malls and stuff where parents will take kids, and it's not the same as when we were growing up, where it was like actually knocking on people's doors and singing the song and getting treats. So it's changed.
Any memorable Halloween costumes do you remember? I know I was never, and still am not, into dressing up. I mean, I love Halloween. I love spooky stuff, but I'm not into dressing up, which I know causes frictions when I go into some parties. But what about you? What's your costume relationship?
Especially when I was a kid, my parents went all out. They really did. And I think one of my greatest ones was an astronaut. It was like all out with the helmet, with the visor, and the whole.
Holy
Yeah, it was
crap!
great. I was like this little tiny astronaut.
Just
So
like
you
walking
know.
like off
I'm pretty
balance.
sure I have pictures somewhere, but
That could
yeah.
be good. That
Uh,
could be good to post that.
but I remember when we were kids, also they sometimes had those like really cheap costumes where it was like almost like paper on top, and then that
Yeah,
really scary like plastic mask that wouldn't
yeah,
move,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it
yeah.
just looked absolutely terrifying. So
There was definitely like a nuance to manufacturing back in the day, since it wasn't as
yeah,
sophisticated as it is now. That somehow,
yeah,
because of its lack of sophistication, you would just get even scarier
yeah, scarier
costumes
stuff.
and masks
Hmm.
just because they weren't able to just do the correct thing. So it somehow
Yeah.
ends up being more eerie. Um,
Hmm.
oh man, that's one of those things too. Like you look at your childhood with nostalgia and look at the current thing, it's like this
Yeah.
horrible aberration from how things are supposed to be. But I'm sure, like in 20 years, the kids that are trick or treating now are gonna be like, "Oh, this is the best way to
No,
do it."
this
Blah
is
blah blah.
yeah,
So, and it's a cycle. It's the cycle, and I always compare it to. And I'll be a Star Wars podcast. I'm always gonna tie it back to Star Wars. It's a
yep.
Star Wars. Like all the prequel kids hate the sequel trilogy because that's what the original trilogy kids did to them. So in 10, 15 years, those sequel trilogy kids are going to be like, damn, this was really, really cool. And so we just have to
Yeah.
accept and be welcoming of like new interpretations and new way of doing things, and just like roll with it and just accept that it means something to the people that are connecting to
Yeah.
it.
I agree.
But before we start talking a little bit about our favorite creepy season films, just it's been a slow Star Wars news cycle
Yeah.
in the last couple of weeks and months. But there are news nonetheless to just discuss real quickly. Uh, you mentioned it before we started recording. One of the rumor mill
Yeah.
is that the Mandalorian and Grogu film has finished filming, which I don't know how I feel about that because anyone
Yeah.
who's listening to this podcast knows that I'm not particularly enthused for that movie. Obviously, I'll be the first in line to watch it, but
Yeah.
I'm not particularly thrilled about news about it. But then on the
Yeah.
other film front, the Ray film that we affectionately keep calling the New Jedi Order film has lost its writer Stephen Knight, although uh, the director and obviously Daisy Ridley are still attached to it, apparently. So it's one of the more interesting news, I think, because it just seems that that's just and it's common in the film industry
Yeah.
to have people come in and out of projects, especially projects that are taking a little longer to gestate. But it's still kind of like I don't know. It always feels bad or leaves a bad taste in our mouths, especially with Star Wars, because it just feels like every project
Yeah.
loses
Yeah.
everybody at some point. So at this
Yeah.
point, it's one of those things where I can understand the people that lose hope on Lucasfilm because it's just
Yeah.
like is anything gonna happen? So I don't know. How did you feel about the news? I know like you are slowly coming back into
Yeah.
the Star Wars
The
awareness.
fold. Yeah.
But yeah, like I know that's a movie that I think you're looking forward to as well. So it's kind of like a bummer to hear that the writer has left, even though I'm sure they'll find someone new.
Yeah. It always, like you said, it always feels like it's just a little ominous, like it's not starting on the right track. And it's kind of frustrating for Star Wars fans because it just happens all the time. And that was one project that I was really excited about. I was super excited when I heard that Daisy Ridley was going to be involved, and everything that goes into it, because I think that is the character that is worth continuing to explore, and especially in film, because like you, the Mando film, I'm not too crazy about, because as we were
Mhm.
talking about, some people have been complaining that there's like, too many TV shows and not enough film content, which, I agree with, because Star Wars started in the theaters and there's nothing compares to actually going to a theater, but
Mhm.
The Mandalorian works in TV. Like that format works for it, and it has been successful at it. I mean, it's not a perfect show by any means, and nothing's been as good as season one, in my opinion, but it benefits from that format. And I feel like the opportunity to do a Star Wars film that we haven't gotten in a long time. I don't think Mando was necessarily the right choice for them to do that, and I don't know if it's actually going to work as a film, and if it's just going to be what like a filler kind of thing, or is it going to actually impact the continuity of the story. I have no idea really how to feel about it, but like you, I'll obviously watch it first in line, but I'm not super excited about it either. So I don't know.
I mean, in many ways, I think that it makes sense for them to just start or come back into theaters with the
Because it's already an
Mandalorian,
established character.
because it's the most
Yeah.
successful new thing
Yeah.
that Disney Lucasfilm has done.
Yeah.
So it's marketable. Everybody knows Baby Yoda, So it's I think it's the easiest thing to kind of do to kind of come
Yeah.
back and make sure that you don't have a flop. Although who knows? I mean, nothing
Anything can
is
happen.
assured that it's gonna be
Yeah.
successful, especially in today's environment. I feel like movie going audiences are a lot more. I don't want to say wise, but cautious about the how they spend their money going to the
Yeah.
movie theater, especially when they have so many options to watch at home. So it's just like, well,
Yep.
if I'm gonna go out and spend some cash to go out to the
Yeah.
theater,
And it's more expensive
it's
each
yeah,
day. So
exactly.
mhm.
And I want to make sure that's something that I absolutely want to see. And like and as we've seen with some movies that we thought were gonna be smash successes, they haven't, and other movies that we thought were gonna fail have been
Yeah.
huge. So I think in that sense, Mando is the safe bet, but in many ways it's this disappointing bet because it's just like, yeah, you're just playing it safe, and I feel that that's and we've talked about it
Yeah.
before. That's the problem with Lucasfilm right now. They don't know what their identity is because they're trying to
Yeah.
cater to
The
everybody,
haters.
especially exactly and the haters, and
Yep.
it's just like how much art and good storytelling can you actually do when
Yeah. If you're trying to make
you're
everybody happy.
exactly when
Hmm.
you're just making films and shows for the least common denominator and doing it by committee to appeal to everybody. Yeah, because at that point you're just like doing something that doesn't appeal to anybody because then
Yeah.
everyone sees through it. So I still have hope. I believe in the Ray film and obviously the James Mangold film. There were
Yeah.
reports that it was going to start the first Jedi, whatever. I mean, there's no title for it, but that movie is supposed to start filming next year. So
Here's hoping.
here's to hoping. But
Yeah.
that's that's it for now with Star Wars
Yeah.
films that are in in the in the
In the
ether.
ether.
But for now, let's talk about films that actually do exist and that have left a mark in our in our collective consciousness growing up, and those are horror movies. And I
Hmm.
know that I have a love hate relationship with them. Like there's horror movies that I really love,
Yeah.
and but I don't seek them out necessarily. I
Yeah.
feel that when I go to the movie theaters, I want to be relaxed.
Yeah.
so
Not
so
necessarily freaking out.
yeah, so sometimes I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh man, that looks like a really good horror movie, but I'm not sure if I'm in the emotional state to go and raise my blood pressure
Right.
watching this. So yeah, so I feel like for the most part I watch more horror movies at home. And when I was
Hmm.
growing up, we had HBO and like Showtime or well, yeah, I think it was HBO and Showtime. So like middle school, early high school, I think was the a golden age, at least for me, in terms of connecting with
Yeah.
horror movies, especially because they were like always on uh, HBO and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So that's when I got to discover a lot of them. So I don't know, what was your relationship? Have you been like a big horror buff all your life growing up, or have you also been kind of like passive in that way?
Yeah, I've been kind of passive about it. And like you said, I haven't, I don't think I've seen many of them in the theaters. I think most of them have been, I've watched at home. And especially because I'm kind of more into the older ones,
Mm,
the more recent, like jump scare kind of stuff. I'm not all that into because I feel like there's something you lose in the tension when you show everything and it's not nearly as scary as some of the more nuanced older films.
mm,
So I haven't seen a lot of like that new because I know a couple years ago like they started releasing a lot of like
mm,
horror films and stuff and I haven't really seen many of them. Um But I don't remember how old I was, but when I was growing up, I had a cousin who was older than me, and she was like 6 or 7 years older, and she
Oh,
was
so she
really
was
into
cool. Yeah.
scary movies. And she would do babysitting a lot and probably exposed me to these films younger than I should have. And I'm still traumatized by the original It.
Mm,
Um,
mhm.
watch it. Even though I've been told it does not hold up, I cannot watch that movie. And I watched the remakes, and I didn't actually think they were that scary, but the original It is like traumatizing.
The original It wasn't
Um,
the original It more like a show? It was like a oh, actually, no, it was a made for TV and like four-part
yeah,
thing, something like
yeah,
that. It wasn't like a
hmm
theatrical release, I don't
yeah.
think.
Terrifying. I no, not okay. But she was really into like scary films, and I mean, I could be misremembering because childhood memories, but I'm pretty sure she went to the extreme of having in her bedroom, like when you close the door, the poster was like the masked Hannibal Lecter, and she
Oh,
slept
yeah.
in that room. So it was like, dude, not okay. So yeah, so I was exposed to Silence of the Lambs and It and Poltergeist and a lot of those older films pretty early on, and a lot of them still terrify me, but some of them I still really enjoy. Like I still love Poltergeist. Like if I see Poltergeist on TV, I'll rewatch it. Like no matter where it is
Mhm.
on the run through. So yeah, so I tend to like more like the paranormal kind of stuff or more than like the slasher ones and
Mhm,
the
mhm,
like
mhm.
really grotesque ones. I'm not super into those, and anything with a doll is not okay.
Those
But
aren't okay, period. Or clowns. Let's put that out there.
but the more like paranormal stuff or more like thriller stuff like The Shining, that I really do like really enjoy. But it's hard for me to think I one day like, oh, today I feel in the mood of watching a horror film. Except, in October where I also like you try to watch more scary stuff, but since Husbando can't, I kind of have to do it by myself, and then I don't really feel like going to sleep if I watch scary movies by myself.
Exactly, exactly. It's
Yeah.
always good to have a
Yeah.
like in Ted, a thunder
The
buddy.
buffer. Yeah.
No, it's funny. It's funny.
What
It's
about
funny.
you?
It's a good story about having like your cousin starting to introduce you to that because
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember like my introductions and I'm not particularly sure. I think I had to kind of do it myself. Uh,
Hmm.
like I had cousins growing up, but like we weren't too close, and they were much older
Yeah.
than I was. So like we didn't bond over films. And my sisters, needless to say, were not into horror movies. Well, actually, that's
Yeah.
not true. That's not true.
Mm.
I remember late '90s, either late '90s or late 2000s, something like that. My sisters were very much into the "I Know What You Did Last Summer" uh,
Yeah.
films. So, like, I remember
Yeah.
those in growing up. I mean, but I didn't watch them. I just know that they were like into that because it was Sarah Michelle Gellar,
Yeah.
or sorry, yeah, Sarah Michelle Gellar.
It was Irish Shop and
So
Freddie Prince Jr., I'm
and
pretty
Freddie
sure.
Prince,
Yeah.
so like, and that's when they were like the big, Hollywood heartthrobs and
Yeah.
everything. So, but growing up, I think it really started with more going to the movie theater with friends in middle school because every
Okay.
Fridays going to Plaza Las Americas, or the
Yeah.
biggest mall in Puerto Rico, and just like Fridays, and then like I went to an all boys school, so like we just would go to the movie theaters with the all girls school, so that we can like be the boys and girls, blah blah blah, and all the movies that you would choose were like the scary movies, and I remember
Claro, claro.
the one I think I remember more vividly. It was like the Final Destination. I don't remember which one.
Wow.
I think
Final
it was
destination.
it's the
Yeah.
one that had like the logs in the pickup, and it goes off the road,
Oh, yeah. I
and the
don't
log just
remember.
smashes into, yeah. So, and you know that the Final Destination movies are more about the gore and the deaths and everything,
Yeah.
more so than plot and character development.
Yeah.
But so not necessarily for me, but I think that was kind of like more of the introduction to like the genre
Yeah.
itself. So from there, I think opposite to you, in which you didn't like slasher films. I think like I fell into more of the slasher stuff because
Like
chronologically,
Halloween
yeah. Well,
and
Halloween actually came a lot later. But
okay.
for me, it was Freddy Krueger was my man. Because at that point, Freddy versus Jason had come out in theaters. I don't think I saw it in theaters. I might have, but I
Yeah.
don't think I did. But it was on HBO all the time. So I would watch Freddy versus Jason. all the
Yeah.
freaking time, and it was. I mean, I don't think it's a good movie by any chance. It's extremely campy, but it's a lot of fun. So like through that, I'm just like, oh, I think I like that Freddy guy. So that's kind of like how I got into like more of the Nightmare on Elm Street
Yeah.
films, and particularly, I really vibed with obviously the first one, and I have the first
Yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street, which is I think is one of the best horror movies of all time. But
Oh
then,
yeah. And it holds up.
but my favorite one, and like I don't see a lot of people really talk about this Freddy Krueger film a lot, because if you're familiar with Freddy Krueger, this is gonna bore you. But if you're unfamiliar, then a quick crash course. Wes Craven is the master of horror. Rest in peace. He died a couple years ago. He
Yeah.
wrote and directed the first Nightmare on Elm Street film. It didn't come back for the second one, but did the third one, or was an executive producer on the third one, something like that. Anyway, point
Hmm.
is, he left the franchise pretty early on, and then after, like most things that happened when a franchise gets big, it starts getting lame because it jumps the shark at that point.
Yeah.
But then he came back for one of the final installments, and this one's called Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and it's definitely one of my favorite horror movies of all time. Period. And it's funny because it came out before the Scream franchise, which Wes Craven also directed.
Yeah.
The first Scream, anyway. But uh, Wes Craven's A New Nightmare is obviously a Freddy Krueger film, but it's also very meta. It's very close to what Scream did, which is like a horror movie that knows it's a horror movie. So
Yeah.
Wes Craven's New Nightmare was about Heather Langenkamp, who played Nancy in the first Nightmare on Elm Street, and obviously Robert Englund, who plays Freddy Krueger, and Wes Craven's in it. So like it's all the real actors playing
Okay.
themselves. But then there's like this. It's very meta because it's commenting on the original Nightmare on Elm Street movies, but then it goes into the demon of Freddy Krueger. That I don't know. It's really cool, really interesting. A proto Scream in many ways. So like I remember when I saw it the first time growing up, I'm like, this is really cool. It has some awesome kills, and I think one of the best Freddy Krueger looks of all time. But I think that one sits pretty high up for me, like in the horror canon of films that I've seen.
I don't think I've seen that one. I'm gonna have to look it up because I am
It's
now
on
I do
Max.
like night.
It's on Max if you have
It's on
that.
Max.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, because I do really like Nightmare on Elm Street, like the first one. I was terrified of watching it when I was a kid because the whole concept of like
dreams. Yeah.
falling asleep being the thing that kills you, I wasn't able to watch it at all until I was older. Like I
Mhm.
couldn't get through it. So and it still holds up and it's amazing.
Yep.
So you do like the slashers then. Do you like when did you get into Halloween then?
Halloween, I think it's one of those that like flew under the radar for me for
Right.
some reason. But it wasn't until I think 2018 when the reboot, well, not the reboot, the Lego sequel with Jamie Lee
Right.
Curtis came out
Right.
with that oddly is also titled Halloween. I was just like, just call it something else because it's the same name as the original. Anyway, but in preparation to go see that one, because I was really excited for it, I'm like, oh, the trailer looks awesome. This is gonna be
Yeah.
great. I'm just like, well, wait, I can't see this movie without seeing the original. So
Yeah.
at that point, then I saw the original Halloween, and needless to say, I loved it. And
Yeah.
in fact, I'm a poster collector, particularly like screen print posters. And
Yeah.
after watching that, like serendipitously, one of the screen print companies that I follow that do like movie posters and stuff made a limited edition release of the Halloween poster signed by the original artist, and I just immediately got it. So that's one of the like my price collect items in my poster
Yeah.
collection. It's like a Halloween poster, screen print,
That's
and
nice.
signed by the artist. Uh, so yeah, so I went into a kind of trip there and starting to watch Halloween films because obviously then watch Halloween 2 and Season of the Witch, which is anthology. It has nothing to do with Michael Myers. But then like the saw the Rob Zombie Halloween ones, which are something. I don't necessarily recommend them, and that's not a slight against Rob Zombie. I think he's made some good
Yeah.
some good movies out there, but the Halloween remakes by Rob Zombie are just some bizarre films, some bizarre films, and I mean that in the most charitable way possible. Have you seen the Halloween films?
Just I think the first one, which is I've rewatched that one a bunch of times. I really
So
like
good.
that one.
It's so
And
good.
then after that, I think the second one's the last one that Jamie Lee Curtis was in, right? Until she came back like years later. There was like a bad one that came back at some point when I was in high school, I
H2O,
think.
H2O,
Yeah.
probably. Yeah.
There we go. There we go. um and then I don't think I've watched the legacy ones. Uh
Look,
that I've heard are good. Yeah.
there's three of them: Halloween,
Yeah.
Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends. And it's the law of diminishing returns. I'll put it that way. Because the first Halloween, Halloween 2018, I think it's amazing. I love that. I love that movie.
Mhm.
I thought it was great and a great companion
Mhm.
piece to the original Halloween. Like Halloween and Halloween
Yeah.
2018, I think are excellent together.
Mhm.
And Halloween Kills, it just I feel like sometimes movies and franchises get up their own ass too much, because
Okay.
they're
Yeah.
like they get lost in the sauce, and they're like trying to
Yeah.
the trying to find so much to say in the mythos that they're creating that they get too convoluted for their own good, I think.
Yeah.
And it just gets messy. I don't know. I think Halloween Kills is fine. It just starts getting off the rails a little bit. And
Okay.
Halloween Ends,
Nah,
yeah,
not so much.
I'm
Okay.
like,
That's
and I wanted, I came in
you wanted it to
wanting
be
to
good.
like it
Yeah.
because I'm just like, damn, because I'm a really big fan of Halloween 2018. But Kills and Ends, I'm just glad it ended. Let's put it that way. One film that I think has done a really good job in its Lega sequel, Lega
Right.
prequel status, whatever you want to call it, is the new Alien Romulus, because that's
Really?
another series of horror films that I really like.
Yeah.
Are the Alien movies. I think
Yeah.
they're fantastic,
They're
especially,
fantastic.
and this is going to be a spicy take, and I want to hear your take about it also. Because when I was growing up, the first Alien film that I saw was Alien Resurrection, which I know,
Ah,
which I know people are
hate.
hate, but I love that movie. I think it's great. I think it's actually very good. I think Alien 3 sucks. But
Yeah.
Alien Resurrection, I think, is gets a lot more hate than it deserves. So that was my entry point for the Alien franchise. Ever since then, I've seen all of them, with the exception of like the Alien versus Predator ones, uh,
Yeah.
and the sequel, the prequels that Ridley Scott did, the Prometheus and Alien Covenant.
Right.
Even though they're not wonderful, I still think they're pretty solid films. But Alien Romulus, it's extra. I saw it in theaters a couple of weeks ago when it came out.
Really?
Excellent, excellent.
Ah,
It's really really good. It's very back to basics. It's just like, let's
yeah.
just go to get the best things from Alien and Aliens and just
Yeah.
do. And one thing that I really appreciated about it was I thought it was going to ignore some of the new, like I thought it was going to ignore Prometheus and Covenant,
Okay. Yeah.
and it does a good job at tying all of the
Right.
Alien movies together. So contemporary horror, Alien Romulus, I think is extremely good. I recommend it. Uh, Watch it, watch it. It's very, very, very good.
Yeah. I remember I saw the trailer, I think, and I was really impressed. Um, because I do really like Alien and Aliens. I'm gonna have to disagree with you about Alien Resurrections. I think it's
Good, it's
terrible.
good. Oh, so good.
I mean, maybe if it was like the first one that I saw or something, that one had Winona Ryder in it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But no, I was introduced to the originals first. I don't remember if Alien or Aliens first. I'm not sure. They obviously released before I was born, but I remember. I think my mom maybe liked it. I don't know. I remember somebody liked it in my house. I remember seeing it when I was a kid, and I couldn't get through all of it when I was a kid because the coming out of the body and the whole thing and something
So
about
good.
like the slime dripping just like creeped me out. I was only able to watch it when I was older and then really appreciate how awesome it is. um but I did see Prometheus, and I'm pretty sure I actually watched it in the theater because I am a fan of the franchise. And I didn't think it's nearly. I think it's gotten some hate too, and I thought Prometheus was pretty good. I mean, it's not masterpiece, but it was. I thought it was pretty good. But I never saw Covenant either. So
Yeah, Prometheus is one of those movies where I don't think it's a I don't think it's
yeah.
and this might be and I don't mean to insult the movie by saying this,
Hmm.
and I don't mean it to be an insult, but I put it in the same category as National Treasure. You know, where it's not National Treasure is not a cinematic masterpiece by any
Yeah.
means whatsoever.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
rewatch value, like if
Yeah.
National Treasure's playing, I'm gonna watch it. It's a good,
Yeah.
entertaining film. It's a you know like a great. Is it gonna be preserved in the Library of Congress? Probably not. Uh, but it's a wonderful movie to just like revisit and rewatch because it's just fun. And I think
Yeah.
Prometheus is kind of the same. It's
Okay.
okay. It's a better movie. It's a better film. It's made much better, much better acting. The National Treasure too. However, it's dumb. It doesn't make sense. Like if you think about anything that happens in that movie
Yeah.
for 2 seconds, you're like, "What?
You're
This
like, what?
doesn't like nothing here is this is dumb." And I don't want to be like one of those nitpicky haters like Cinema Sins or any of these people that just like tear apart
Yeah.
movies because I don't think that's productive. Uh, but Prometheus, I will say at the very least has a lot of rewatch value. And it's a movie that I can just again same thing. Like if it's playing, I'm gonna watch it. And
Yeah.
sometimes if I'm bored and I don't know what else to watch, I'll watch Prometheus. It's just
Okay.
a it's an entertaining movie. I dig it, and I appreciate that what it did for the Alien franchise of trying to just do something
Yeah.
different,
Yeah. Yeah.
even if it
Okay. So I
didn't fit
definitely
the
have
whole.
to watch the new one.
Half
Yeah.
is a strong
Yeah.
word.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I
definitely
want
recommend it.
to.
I
I
definitely
want to.
recommend it for spooky season.
Yeah.
Um,
So is there any that have actually cost you nightmares, like, or that you remember that still, if it's on, you're like, nope, that's not gonna happen.
I think that life a person in my mid 30s, I feel like life is much more horrifying than anything a horror movie can
Mhm.
provide. So no, I
Yeah.
don't have nightmares about horror movies because life is far more awful.
Far more horrifying.
Eh,
I still can't watch the Gremlins. I think the Gremlins are one of the scariest things that ever been put on film.
I
I
will say
hate
that
those things.
there are movies that
Mhm.
I've seen once that I don't need to revisit.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that was good for the experience that I got, but I don't need to watch it again. And not. I don't think anything like that is coming to mind. But recently, I did watch The Substance, which I think
Oh yeah.
I would consider it a horror movie because
Yeah.
there's a lot of body horror. It's very Cronenberg in that sense. Which speaking of Cronenberg, The Fly, one of
Oh,
the
The Fly.
best.
Yeah.
It's a remake. Jeff Goldblum,
Yeah.
excellent. Gina Davis,
Hmm.
amazing. But
Amazing.
so the substance is in that vein. It's like feminist Cronenberg in that way because it's about it's about uh, well I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but it's so good. And I watched it at the big screen, like I said, and it was a packed theater, and it was one of the good audiences to watch it
Where
with
everybody
because
like,
people, yes, everyone was reacting the
yeah.
perfect way to like all the right scenes. And
Yeah.
I think like that movie was, I mean, it was shocking. Like a lot of the things that happen in that movie are just like, whoa, this is
Yeah.
intense. So I definitely, if you want to be shocked, I would definitely
Right.
recommend watching The Substance because it's. I mean, Demi Moore gives a powerhouse performance, and so does
Yeah.
well this new girl. I always forget her name. Well, she's in everything now. The one that is with Demi Moore and The Substance. They're both incredible in the film. So I definitely recommend that one. I think it's a good it's a good one for the season
Mm.
for sure. What about you? What's besides Gremlins? I guess what's the one that has traumatized you the most?
Probably The Shining. And I love
Interesting.
The Shining. It's actually one of my favorite movies of all time. I've rewatched it a bunch of times. But whenever I watch it, if that night, or sometimes if I randomly wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, I have to turn on the light and push the shower curtain aside to make sure there's no rotten corpse. inside.
Fair, fair.
Like all, my entire life. It's terrifying. But I do actually love that movie, so I can't really complain.
Interesting, because I saw Doctor Sleep, not
It
a
wasn't that
couple of.
good.
I just thought it was much better than I was hoping it was going to be.
Mm,
And it's Mike Flanagan, and Mike Flanagan is a master of horror. I mean,
yeah,
even if you didn't like Doctor Sleep, I've heard that the extended director's cut is much better. I haven't seen it yet,
really.
so I need to watch it.
Okay.
But
Hmm.
you have to watch his horror anthologies on Netflix.
Hmm.
Hunting on Hill House, Hunting on Bly Manor.
Oh, those are
Uh,
amazing. I love them. Yeah, I do love those.
what's the one with the priest? Oh, that one's Midnight
Ah,
Mass. Oh,
yeah.
Midnight Mass is incredible, and so is the Fall of the House of Usher. Those
Oh yeah, that one's fantastic. Yeah,
so good. Mike
I love
Flanagan,
those. Yeah.
excellent. I think he's gonna do. I think the next thing on his plate is gonna be an adaptation of a Stephen King book, as usual, because that's what he always does. So I'm looking forward to that. But I think another movie that kind of messed me up too, watching in theaters, which I was forgetting about. I was just looking at a list here that I'll talk about in a second. Was Signs. I know that M Night Shyamalan nowadays is kind of a joke, but
Yeah.
back when we were growing up, M Night Shyamalan was the bee's knees, and he did not miss. And I remember I went to see Signs with Carlos Ojeda, one of my best friends, and I think his my mom might have been with us. I don't remember. But we went to the in Puerto Rico. There's only like one movie theater, basically, it's Caribbean cinemas. But back in the day, there was Cine Vista, which was also
Right.
in Plaza Las Americas. One was on one
Hmm.
corner of the mall, and the other was on the other corner of the mall. So that was one of the last movies I think I saw at Cine Vistas before it closed,
Yeah.
and Caribbean Cinemas took over everything. And it was Signs, and Signs messed me up. Like especially that scene when Joaquin Phoenix is in the closet and he's watching
Yeah.
the TV, and then all of a sudden, like the alien just pops out of like the plants, and the kids start screaming, and Joaquin Phoenix starts screaming. No joke, I actually threw my popcorn. Like I got so scared. So that's one of those movies that I absolutely love to pieces, and I immediately bought the DVD when it came out. That one was excellent, excellent movie. I don't,
I
did you
wasn't a
get to
fan
watch it?
of that one, but I was a huge fan of The Sixth Sense. So
Because I think it depends on like your insertion point with M Night
yeah.
Shyamalan. I think that was my
Mhm.
insertion point was Signs. So
Yeah.
so after that, like I kept giving him a shot,
The benefit of the doubt, and there was no,
Because after
no.
that, I saw The Village, which The Village is fine. Like if you look at it,
Yeah.
knowing
Yeah.
that it's not what you think it's gonna be,
Yeah.
it's fine.
But what was the other one
But
about the plants attacking the world? That one was so
oh,
bad. The Marky Mark
the
one.
happening, the happening,
Oh, that was bad.
atrocious,
That was
horrible, bad,
bad. That was
bad,
so bad.
bad. It was just bad, I mean, and I don't like to just crap
Yeah.
on stuff,
But that
but
was
like,
bad. No,
but
that was bad.
that was
Oh
bad,
yeah.
that was
That was
bad.
terrible. Oh
Yeah.
man.
I feel like that's the one where I was just like, okay, I think I'm
Yeah, I'm
done.
done. Yep. Hmm.
I think I'm gonna start giving you my money, because I saw Lady in the Water, and that was
That
also
was terrible too.
uh, crap. And then the happening, I was like, what the?
And I think he recently made one. I saw it. I was like,
I
why are they
saw it.
still giving
I
him
saw it.
projects?
I went to see it in movie theaters. Trap.
Oh
It's
God,
with
crap.
not Ethan Hawke, the other handsome guy. Whatever, I forgot his name. But it's the one where he's a serial killer in a concert, and I was just like, the trailer looked good. I'm like, oh, this trailer
Okay.
looks dope. The movie,
No.
it's it's just at that
So
point,
see, you're
I
still falling into the trap. You said you had stopped giving him
the movie is
the
called Trap
benefit
after
of the
all.
doubt, and you fell into it and watched it, and it was bad.
The movie's called Trap after all.
Yeah.
And there was
Yeah.
nothing else to watch. I mean, it's like, okay, let's. It's sometimes it's better to go to the movies and watch a crappy movie than not to go to the movies at all.
True.
That's
True.
that's my opinion anyway. Uh,
Hmm.
but yeah, not to uh, extend this further than it needs to go. But one thing I wanted to say about like horror movies was that another thing that I watched, and I'm curious to know if you saw this as well. When again, like middle school, high school, during that era
Yeah.
of the early 2000s, uh, Bravo, who now obviously is known for only doing crappy reality TV shows. Bravo at the time did the Bravo's 100 scariest movie moments,
Okay.
and it was kind of like the format of all the kind of pop culture shows of the time, kind of like a VH1 with I Love the '90s and '80s and '70s type of
Mhm.
format, where it's like different celebrities come in, they talk about different movies, and it's basically a ranking of the 100 scariest movie
Okay.
moments. And that was such a cool special. It's like a special that I've liked it. I liked it so much then that I just revisited almost every Halloween. I like have it
Okay.
downloaded and everything. And it's like the list is really, really good because it's not just contemporary horror movies.
Right.
They talk about obviously old school horror movies, but also international horror movies too, uh, from Italy and Japan and stuff like that. And there's some really, really cool stuff there. And it's always been my intention at some point in my life to
Watch all of them.
watch all of them from that list. And it was such a, I mean, it was such a cool show that they did like two sequels to it, because then after 100 scariest movie moments, they did 30 even scarier movie moments, and then after that, the next year they did 13 scarier movie moments. So they kind of kept that series going.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to kind of end on that because it's one of those fond memories of engaging
Okay.
with spooky season, watching this little crappy TV special that you just revisit and get myself back into that mentality of being in my youth and discovering all this new world of movies. So I'm curious to know, like, yeah, if you saw that, or if you didn't, if there was something similar to that that kind of always makes you nostalgic for Halloween.
Yeah, I hadn't remembered it now until you mentioned it, but yeah, I remembered that I was into it. Like, and I started watching. I don't remember what I started watching. I was like, it's Halloween, and I feel like watching something scary, blah blah blah. But again, Josbando is such a coward, and he does not watch any of this stuff. So it's kind of a buzzkill. And so I have to wait for my nieces to get older, or for my sister to actually get a break because we would watch scary movies together.
Hmm.
Um, not at least Husbando is not as bad as my brother. He's the most coward. He
I thought your
cannot.
brother went to
No.
Universal Horror Nights.
Yeah, but I think that's different. I'm not
I've
sure,
heard
but
that
he
that
is.
crap's terrifying.
Well, I'm not sure if he's ever gone to Horror Nights, but I remember he wouldn't even get on like the Haunted Mansion.
Oh, that's not scary at all. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah,
I'm
he's the
disappointed. I'm
worst.
disappointed.
Yep, yep. You can read.
I thought more of him.
No, you can reach out and confirm, but it's bad. It's really bad.
Oh man.
But yeah, but I love the Halloween ambiance. I mean, obviously, like you were saying, here in Puerto Rico, like we don't really get seasons, so it's nothing. But I went to
Mhm.
college in Boston, and I always loved the fall and how everybody always got really into it, and going to Salem and doing the whole touristy thing. Um, but yeah, but I think scary movies are fun. I mean,
Mhm. Mhm.
even the bad ones, getting a little jump scare every once in a
Yeah,
while
yeah,
is
yeah.
always good. So,
Even
and being
not so
actually,
scary ones, right? Because you said
yeah,
Salem, and all of a sudden I just remembered Hocus Pocus. That was a
which is
movie.
fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So, and I always rewatch Nightmare Before Christmas, which is both a Halloween
Mhm.
and a Christmas movie. So I
Agreed.
always watch
We don't
them.
need to choose. Yeah.
We don't need to choose. You can watch it twice a year. It's fine. Um, but yeah, there's other things that I've never been completely into. I wasn't huge on the zombies thing, even though I was
Mhm.
into The Walking Dead for the
Mhm.
first few seasons and then kind of lost interest. But the films themselves, I'm not huge on, except for maybe 28 Days Later, which I actually really do like. But I mean, there's so much in horror. Like
Yeah.
there's so much for all
So there's
different
something for
palettes.
everybody.
So,
Because yeah, you said
so
zombie movies, and yeah, I remember, like, because I remember growing up. Uh, so I don't know why this was playing during the day, because I remember watching Night of the Living Dead, the original George
oh
Romero
right.
zombie
hmm
movie, like at my grandmother's house. I'm just like, why is this playing? It must have been obviously
Yeah.
October, and it's like, why is this movie playing on PBS or whatever channel it was? Because we only had like very very basic cable. But yeah, I remember watching Night of the Living Dead there and like
Yeah.
being terrified of it. But yeah, something for everybody. But
Yeah.
one of the interesting things of the horror thriller genre, whatever, is its ability to adapt and be what it needs to be in different scenarios and environments. Like we have obviously slasher films, like what we said with Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees, but we also have sci-fi horror, like the Alien
Alien.
franchise. So it's obviously we're a Star Wars podcast, so I'd be remiss if we didn't
Mhm.
speculate or have fun thinking about the possibilities of horror in Star Wars. I know we've had spooky moments in Star Wars. I know we've had the Lego Halloween special, and
Yeah.
not too long ago, which were lots of fun. But is there space for Star Wars to do a horror movie or something like that? What are your thoughts on the matter? Have you ever thought
I
about
think
it?
there is. And I think we've talked to Mo about it before. I think they have always said that there's definitely space for horror in Star Wars and it's unexplored. And I think it would be great because there's so much to the galaxy and there's so much darkness too that I think it would lend itself very much so to something horror. And it doesn't have to be any of the characters that we know, even though we've seen a little bit of the horror side of Darth Vader, but
Mhm.
it can be anything. I mean, I think it would be amazing if thoughtfully done. Obviously, like it would be something very easy to screw up if not done with
Mhm.
care. But I think there's space for it. What do you think?
I think it's interesting because obviously, like I said, it's such a vast galaxy that
Yeah, yeah,
there's necessarily a horror in it, right?
yeah.
And those things have been kind of touched upon sometimes. I know that there's books obviously that have talked about or told some of these stories, but I doubt if there's space for like Star Wars horror in movies. I think that
Mm,
the movies I don't think are a space for that because I'm not sure how that experiment will go because it would be kind
right.
of a ballsy thing for Disney and Lucasfilm to all of a sudden be like, hey, remember all the movies we've done are like sci-fi fantasy,
Yeah,
and all of a sudden here's like some sci-fi horror in the Star Wars galaxy. I think audiences might not like be
yeah,
receptive to it just because it's not what you expect from
yeah,
a Star Wars experience at the cinema. But I do think that Disney Plus is a wonderful place
yeah.
to start doing like shorts or limited series or like like Marvel did. Marvel a couple of years ago did the Werewolf by Night special
Hmm.
with Gael Garcia, I think it was, which was a wonderful one shot special, like small short film. And it's like I think there's absolutely space for Star Wars to do things like that. I think that would
Okay.
be really cool, like one shots and things like that to explore that because one of the wonderful things I think that Ahsoka gave us was like all the zombie troopers. 'Cause I thought
Yeah,
they looked. One, the design was amazing, and then I mean the concept of zombie stormtroopers isn't particularly new, but it's the first time we've seen it
yeah,
in live action. So I'm just like, oh yeah, there's a space to
yeah. You can do it.
explore that
Hmm.
even more because I know there's also Clone Wars episodes that had like zombie clone troopers with the uh, parasite infections that they got, and that was kind of like
Yeah.
horror movie. So for sure, I think that's I think the streaming side of Star Wars is where we can explore that a little bit more. Kind of like what network TV did back in the day. I remember when we would watch like Boy Meets World or any of the shows that we did watch growing up. There was always a Halloween special,
There was always a Halloween episode. Yeah.
and
Hmm.
I'm just like, I think that streaming has just destroyed how TV
Yeah.
works anymore. And I think that we
Hmm.
can kind of go back to that a little bit. It's just like if series just lasted longer and it were more continuous, you can just put more
Yeah.
variety in there to
Yeah.
see that because yeah, Star Wars will always benefit from having a more variety into the types of stories it tells. But
Agreed.
we'll see.
And I think with that, we're done for today, right?
We're done
Because
for today because we gotta go
we're
trick
done
or
for
treating.
today. Yeah, candy.
Yeah.
Yes, let's get to. Well, anyway, we are Triad of the Force. Remember to like, subscribe, leave a comment. Let us know if there's any other horror films that we did not mention that you would recommend that you think are amazing. If you think some of the ones we mentioned are, not nearly as good as you think. And let us know if you think that if there is room for horror in Star Wars and how would that look like to you. Well, until next time, may the Force be with you and happy Halloween.